Jordan is a moderate American ally nearly surrounded by war, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to its west, Syria to its north, and Iraq to the east. Today, we spoke to King Abdullah in New York before this month's UN General Assembly meeting. For hundreds of years, his family ruled the holiest shrines in Islam, and the king was nearly at a loss for words today when we asked him about the head of ISIS, who claims to lead all Muslims.
I hate to use the word heretics or whatever the words of those types are, but to even call himself a Muslim, to me, is just the words that I just particularly don't want to use on this program.
You just used the word heretic. Is he an Islamic heretic?
I think to use the word Islam and him in the same sentence is not acceptable. That he even speaks in the name of Islam, for me, is just so horrendous and so shocking.
The Kingdom of Jordan has borne the burden of the Syrian civil war, even though it has no oil wealth and precious little water. We went to the border where for 3 years, refugees from that war have risked death in the desert in the hope of reaching Jordan where they're welcome. We caught up with this group of refugees inside Syria as they made the last mile to the berm that marks the border with Jordan. There are hundreds just like them every day, thousands every month. Jordan is now host to vast refugee camps which have become cities in the desert.
It's the right thing to do. I mean, where else would the Syrians go? They're in dire straits, and that's why today we have 1.4 million Syrian refugees in our country, 20% or slightly more of our population.
20% of the population,
yes,
are refugees from outside the country.
Equivalent of probably 60 million refugees in your country as we speak.
How long can you manage that?
Well, I think we're at the limit, actually, and with the difficult economic conditions that we're in, it's a tremendous burden on our country.
Have your troops been engaged with ISIS? Do you think of your borders as secure?
We have retaliated to several contacts over the past several months to those that have come across our border or try to come across our border. So we have been, I think, somewhat aggressive to make sure that our borders are defended.
Are your borders secure?
Our borders are extremely secure.
King Abdullah told us forcing ISIS out of Iraq is the easier part, but he estimates digging it out of its base in eastern Syria could take 2 years.
The difference with ISIS, I think, compared to any other organization is their self-financing. They can produce within a year, in a year cycle, up to almost $1 billion worth of oil derivatives that they're obviously selling at a low price, about $30 a barrel, which means that they can pay a lot of foreign fighters to come into their country. They can buy weapons.
Would $1 billion a year give them a seat at OPEC?
You would imagine if you had that capability, which is, I think, about what they have today is about a third of the production of the United Arab Emirates. You know, in a way, technically, they'd be asking for a seat at OPEC.
Now, according to the king, all countries in the region face a choice.
ISIS, I think, has triggered an understanding that it's time for all of us to make up our minds on the fight of good against evil. And this brings all of us together from all religions of all different sides of the divide to make up our minds, are we going to fight the good fight?
Could the rise of ISIS have been prevented?
They could have been prevented if the international community worked harder together to make sure that funding and support to the original groups in Syria were not allowed to get to the extent that they were.
The international community, the United States, intervened too late.
I think we could have done a better job in making sure that earlier on it was identified who the bad people were and action by the international community was taken not to allow that to happen.
Refugees dragged themselves into Jordan. The king has welcomed 1.4 million Syrian refugees so far. What are the risks of ISIS if it carries on the way it has?
ISIS, the reaction to ISIS has got to be quick, and We have not been quick. I'm very, very pleased that President Obama has been thinking this through, I think, in a very sensible manner.
But in your estimation, just in the nick of time?
In the nick of time, but the problem is with ISIS is they're cross-border. It's in Syria and Iraq. So it's been a bit difficult, I think, for Western countries. And how do you deal with solving the Iraq part of the puzzle, but then going into eastern Syria, which has some legal ramifications? And I think that's taken a bit of time.
In an interview just last year, you said there shouldn't be foreign military intervention in Syria.
I don't think anybody's talking about expecting foreign boots on the grounds. In Iraq, it's the Iraqis that can do it with assistance from the coalition, and in Syria, it's the Syrian opposition doing it, moderate opposition, pushing back against extremists.